it changes as I build it, as he sees it, what I'm building it, but nothing is released into operation. So customer is not able to make any money by selling the software till actually it's done. Okay, clear between the difference of two?
This will be more fitted for like an operating system or something big, right?
Right on to that. All right. Right. And we'll talk it in a moment, right? What will fit where, what it makes more sense.
I just have one question.
Uh-huh.
It's about the agile development methodology. So once you're done with the first iteration, how do you go to the next one?
So, you're done, right, first month? Hey, I know, I'm done with that. So it's okay. Now, let's start putting additional requirements on it. So how would I go with that, right? So you keep continuously building it, right? So it's not going it, right? I'm done with the first one, here is that. Well, while you're managing the customer and selling and making money, I'm gonna build additional functionality. Then I'm gonna build additional
So it's not
functionality.
simultaneous.
It's not something, it's, I'm done here first phase.
First one. Okay.
Then I'm doing second iteration, then I'm doing third, right? But I'm not gonna start this till I'm done. The difference is, this is a time-bound activity.
Okay.
So it says, hey, my iteration one is not dependent on, here are the features I'm gonna build it, right? The iteration one is built on it, a lot of times it is, what I'm gonna be building in a 1 month, or what I'm gonna be building in a 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a typical iteration, right, for a job, right? It says, in 2 weeks, this is what I will deliver. As soon as that 2 weeks is over, I'm in the next 2 weeks and says, in this 2 weeks I can deliver this. This is what I can deliver, right? So this is a more a time bound.
Okay.
This is more a feature bound. And hey, I'm gonna do this thing, right? So inception is, hey, I'm gonna do all these activities. Then I'm gonna do all these activities for all this. I'm gonna do all this.
You cannot make any changes in agile methodology while when you're not done with all iterations. I mean, if you're done with first iteration, you cannot make any changes in the first, then you're done with the second one.
So if this is a time bound, right?
Uh-huh.
2 weeks passed. And the next iteration. Right.
No, if you
What?
is it possible to make any changes?
So what I'm going to do it, right, here is, I delivered this much software. Now customer's gonna look and says, yeah, but I want it interface like this. That's fine. It becomes part of my second iteration activity. That I'm gonna take whatever was built and I'm gonna modify it to meet what the feedback I got. Then I'm gonna do it, right? So typically, and the way the agile works is you're working with your customer all the time. Okay? So you're not waiting till the end of 2 weeks to show it something to the customer. Well, a lot of people do it that way, right? But you can just say, hey, let me just sit, it's more about collaboration. Let's say if Herschel is the product owner, it says I want certain product, right? And I'm the company which is kind of providing him that services to build that software, right? During the iteration one, right? It's not that Herschel writes it on a piece of paper and says, Philip, go build it, right? Sit down with Herschel and just go through various techniques and says, tell me what you want. Let's just sketch it what you want it on a paper. Do you want it this way or do you want this way? Right? I haven't built the software. I'm collaborating with him to figure it out what he wants, right? And then says, oh, yeah, that's the type of things I want to explain. Okay, that's fine. Let me go build this and give you that, right? Then second iteration, let's just figure out what do we want to do it for next week. Let's just do the same collaboration. Let's just draw it on a drawing board. Now I'll ask the question, do you want this way or do you want this? Do you want this or do you want this? Right? So Herschel is not writing a big requirements document. He says, Philip, go build this. Right? He comes with a vision that, hey, I want this. Right? And then I ask him a whole bunch of questions. And he tells me, this is the way I want it, this is what I want, or this is right? So it's a collaborative effort. That I get it, that and do it. So when I'm done with the first iteration, I'm producing something that he wants, right? And then he can sell that and says, okay, is that actually we're making a money or not in the market? If not, you may decide after 2 iterations that, you know what, it was a great idea, but it doesn't seem the market is ready for it. Let's not worry about putting it, right? So what happened is, within the first 2 months, instead of waiting for 2 years, figured it out whether this is a viable business or not. Right? So my investment now came it down 1/12 of what it was planned originally before I do it. And then along the way, I already made some money probably to make a determination whether I'm going to do it or not. And this is more driven by the market, right? With the internet coming in, right? Things is going it so fast that gone are the days where you have luxury. If it's going to take me 2 years to build this whole software, you tell me what you want, have fun. I'm going to go for 2 years, I'm going to build it and give you it, right? Because most likely, if you don't deliver it within a certain time period, you're out of the market. Think what happened to you. Think what happened to you. They didn't keep it up. They're irrelevant. Once they were a very big company, Kodak, right? Very big in that. Well, you don't keep it up. You take huge number of years to evolve. It will be history. That's why this is important. But is this fit for everything? Oh, think about it. You're building a space system. Do you really want to launch it every 2 weeks to figure it out whether it's working or not? Right? So it's a game. What is your business problem? What are you trying to do? What makes sense? Third one is waterfall. Okay, so this is the other one where it says, okay, I'm not going to try to build anything till you give me everything in writing what you want. Okay, you give me everything what you wanted. I'll do a design. I'll make sure everything that you wanted is covered in the design. Everything is addressed. I'm not going to try to write a single piece of code till I exactly know everything, how it needs to be designed, what it needs to be designed. Same thing, right? It may have to interact with a whole bunch of other systems. So I'm going to integrate with that. I'm going to test it, and then I'm going to deploy. This is my 2-year cycle that I was talking, right? It's going to take me 2 years with all the requirements. You know what? You give me everything on day one, and I'm going to go. Well, the problem is tax laws changes every year, right? Halfway through it, and says, oh, I need to change the requirement. Oh, wait a minute. You get what you asked for, right? Or, okay, you want fine? Well, let's throw away everything that we did for a year. Let's start on scratch here. That's work. Okay? So, when to use what? If you know exactly what you want, and the requirements are not changing, and it's a lot more stable system, then you typically go through this workflow. That was the case till 1970s, 1980s, right? Where you had a multi-year project building the systems, okay? Where you have a captive audience. When you're building a mainframe systems, right, on banking, well, you know there are not that many banks around. And as a customer, if you want, you have no choice but to go through that. Another example is, and I come from the telecom background. I worked in the telecom industry for almost 25 years. So when you look into telecom industries, right, in the 80s and 90s, if you have a phone number with a certain company, you're locked in with them. You're not going anywhere. There were monopolies till 1984, till Congress decided to break down the AT&T into big pieces. You had a monopoly. You know what? You want a phone? Sure. We will deliver it once or 2 years. Right. So the changes for international dialing and all cost arm and a leg at that time. Right? Now flip back into today's world, right? Nobody cares who's the telecom company, right? As long as I have a data, I have an app, I can call internationally. I don't need to go through AT&T or Verizon or anybody. Now, if I take this 2 years to build my app, How many customers are gonna stick with me for those 2 years? Right? So I better be doing this,
Yeah,
giving them the new feature every week or every other week.
and keep updating like iOS or
Right.
iOS.
Right. So if I don't do this, I'll be out, right? But if I'm building a space system to deliver the humans from here to Mars, do you think this is gonna work? Right? It's more likely this is gonna work, right? Because this is also difficult, because things change. We constantly learn about the new solar systems as well as the impacts of things every day, right? So I'm probably gonna most likely do this. Okay? This is also used when there are massive systems are being built. Like for example, F-35 fighter planes, those you just go and build it. Took 10 years to build it. This. Boeing or Airbus builds a new plane. They're not gonna use this. They may use pieces of software to build this, like it's kind of entertainment system, right? But the critical flying systems, it's not gonna be built this way, it's gonna be built this way. Right? Very few people use the waterfall nowadays.
Yeah, is it somebody using the waterfall anymore?
So, things in a big corporation takes a huge time to change. Right? There are reasons, like there are regulatory reasons, put it in place, right? So if you are a telephone company providing 911 service, there are restrictions that you need to make sure you publish it, certain things certain way, right? So, and there are systems which you build it around those things. So you may still work parts and pieces out, but if you're building something newly from scratch, then chances are you're going to go with this or an entry.
Is it easier for you guys to program when you have like the waterfall, that you know exactly what you have to do and you just go with it? So nobody's changing minds or anything, it's just
Okay, tell me
straightforward?
how many times your customer has not changed their mind.
Well, if they chose the waterfall thing,
Okay, it's not about what you chose, it's about what your customer wants and when he wants it. Right? We have kind of gone from a corporate-driven economy to a customer-driven economy. Yes.
Like a Microsoft system, like a Windows, will fall into this, whatever category. Like, because each Windows, we use like 3 years.
Microsoft has transitioned everything to Agile.
yeah, like with Windows 10 now, you get updates every 30 minutes, they change everything.
No, I mean like from XP to Windows 7, from Windows 7 to,
Now,
it take years to
okay,
build it
so
up.
what you're equating it is, when did customer gets it? Okay? A lot of times it's not only when did customer gets it. Now, company may decide to sell their external customers only every year with the major updates. But you may be constantly building in new features every 2 weeks and releasing them. Facebook does a daily release in production across the global node. So does Amazon Web Services. So does Microsoft. Okay. Most of the companies, when they are building it a customer-facing features, are leaning towards moving towards Agile, or they are already at Agile. If you're building it a strategic product that is not visible to the external customer, then occasionally you use this. I've seen companies using this, even for those kind of things. Okay. And partly it's because it's a customer-driven economy. When I'm building a strategic product, I'm still constantly getting an input from what is happening in the market. The market is changing so frequently and so quickly with the internet. Think of it, right? Internet of Things, or the wearable devices. things are constantly changing every day. Right? I don't know how many of you use any of the wearable devices. I use Fitbit. Right? This is a physical device. But the app that is on the phone gets changed every 3 days, every 4 days, because they're releasing new features. That's what this is. And the other benefits of this kind of things is that it also allows you to quickly adapt to what customer wants and stay away. Okay. Yahoo, AOL, and Kodak followed this path. It stayed on this for a while. Okay. Any questions?
So we can't add any requirements in between the iterations, right? We have to wait until the first iteration.
Yeah, in the agile world, you don't worry about requirements for everything. You worry only for it is, in this 2 weeks, you want me to build this feature, what is the requirement to build this feature? That's it. You don't worry about what is going to be the, well, typically what you do it is you keep it, there is a whole bunch of methodologies like backlog and all, right? So if you go to scrumalliance.org, they have a whole bunch of detail on that. But what you do it is, you don't build the requirements for everything beforehand. You build it for 1 or at the most 2 iterations and say, okay, this is what I'm going to pick it up next. Right? Part of it is that once you are done with the 2 weeks, right, you don't want to wait, is okay, what is next? Right? You want to keep it pipeline. Okay, once you're done with this, tackle this. Then tackle the third one, right? After 3 iterations, probably it doesn't add any benefits, because if there are constantly requirements changing, why you want to keep putting it like open in the future, right? As long as you are 2 or 3 iterations defined, that's all you care, because you're constantly in the development cycle. So, coming back to the original questions, right? What is the software quality assurance? Right? To me, it's not just the testing. Right? And anybody who tries to sell you that, okay, quality assurance is the testing, they don't understand what is required. Right? So, quality assurance is the discipline that measures the quality of the software produced. Right? It is an integral part of the development lifecycle. Okay? It needs to be part of the process to build the software and not after. So in other words, you can't build the software, right? And then give it to somebody and say, test it, and call it as a quality. Because it's not quality. Because at that point, if you are having a cracked code, it's already there. You didn't do anything to prevent it. All you're doing is validating it, how crappy that code is. That's all you're doing when you're doing testing. Or you're validating it, how good the code is. That's all you're doing. You're not making an impact of how it can be better. Okay. So we'll walk through it in terms of talking about it is, what is it takes that when you talk at each of the phases, what it means to be a quality. Okay? So let's talk about it. Okay, so we talked about the architecture, we talked about the different development methodology. Now let's talk about it is, how is actually software development happens. Okay. So, in a big corporation, or even in a small corporation, right? How do you start building a software? Right? So most of the business, you don't go and say, hey, I think I have a cool software that I want to build for you. Give me money, I can build it for you. Right? Business don't operate like that. They start with talking about, okay, what is the business problem that I'm trying to solve? Okay. And the solution of it may result in building a software, or it may not result. Okay. So every time when somebody says, hey, I need to build a software, right, the first thing they should worry about is what business problem I'm trying to solve. Okay. And based on what you're trying to do it, right, majority of, actually, I've not seen any business problem that doesn't fall in one of this category yet, right? I've been in the industry for 25 years. So, you're gonna try to like solve a business issue, and it's gonna fall into one of the categories. Either you're trying to do a process improvement, or you're trying to improve your productivity, or you're trying to reduce the overall cycle time of how you do certain things in a certain time frame. Okay. Or you need to reduce the cost to stay competitive, or you're trying to get the market share improvement. Okay. Let's talk about the example that we were talking about, the book store that you're trying to build with multiple locations and a warehouse and all, right? So, when you initially try to do it, a customer calls you and says, hey, I want to get the book that I wanted, do you have it or not? Right? And you're trying to find it across all this. Okay. So what you're trying to do it is, first thing you're trying to do is a process improvement from the point of view is, how do customers interact with you to find the book, right? So the first part of that process improvement was, instead of customer going and calling each one of the stores that you have across the town, you said, you know what, you have to just call one place, and we will get all the detail for you. Right? That's a process improvement. Now customer is not going in multiple places. Second aspect is productivity improvement, right? So, if I'm trying to look for a book that a customer called it and say, hey, do you have XYZ book? If I don't have it, everything organized properly, I have to go through every book before saying answer yes or no, right? What if I can have organized it in such a way that I have a systematic and I can quickly find it, right? So, if I do that, that's a productivity improvement. The reason why it's a productivity improvement, now, one person who was taking first 2 hours to go through every book in the store to figure out I have it or not, right? Now, same person can find that thing in probably 10 minutes by going and walking to it and says, hey, it's alphabetically sorted, right? So, instead of doing it for 2 hours, now he's able to get that same task done in 10 minutes, right? So he's now more productive person. He can handle more requests coming from a customer. The cycle time improvement. So think about it, I'm a customer, I called in your store and then say, hey, do you have this XYZ book? And you said, yeah, I don't have it, let me check it for you. Or let me check for you in the other stores, right? And then you check it with the other stores, and then in order to do that, you need some time, right? Let's say if you have 10 stores, and you can say, I'm gonna make a call to each one of the 10 stores. You're gonna tell a customer and says, you know what? Give me a couple of hours, I'll get back to you. Let me go find it out with that. Okay? Now, customer is gonna wait for 2 hours to get your call. And now the book is not there in any of the stores. So he says, hey, it's not there, but we have it in a warehouse that I can get it to you tomorrow, or day after tomorrow. Good. What if you don't know whether it's in a warehouse or not, right? It means you're now calling the warehouse. Warehouse guy says, hey, you know what? I need to go search manually everywhere to see if I have it or not. I'll give you a call tomorrow to see if I have it. So you call the customer and says, hey, I checked it, none of the store has it. The warehouse is looking into it and they'll get back to you tomorrow. Okay. Warehouse finds it and I don't have it. Let me call our publisher. Right? So now, from a customer's point of view, it took almost 48 hours to get that simple answer. Do you have this book or not? Versus if I call it, right, and as a salesperson, you're able to say, oh, you know what, none of our store has it, our warehouse doesn't have it, but I can go check it into the publisher, and they said they can ship it in 2 weeks, so I can have you in 2 weeks. Now that entire conversation, which earlier took 48 hours, is now reduced into a one phone call, probably 5 minutes. Right? So the cycle time in which I was able to answer back the customer's query has gone down from 48 hours to 5 minutes. That's a cycle time. Okay. Think about reducing the cost. Okay. So it can come into two flavors, right? One is the labor cost, right? So if I'm not organized and taking 2 hours within the store to find out whether the book is there or not, and if I'm expecting 50 customer calls a day for similar things, right? So I need 100 hours to answer that question. Right? So spend 100 hours, right? Let's say I was holding somebody at $10 an hour, right? So now it's going to cost me $1,000 in the labor to answer this 50 customer's question. Okay. What if I can get it answered in 5 minutes? So now for 100 customers, it's going to take me 500 minutes, right? Which is roughly about 8.5 hours, right? At $10 an hour, it's now that working to get done in 80 hours. So I can go down from $1,000 to $90 in my cost. That's the need to reduce the cost. See how that could be a driver factor. The last thing is needing time to need to improve market share. Now, if I was brick and mortar company, that means customer has to actually walk into the store to get the book, right? What is my market score? It's only the people who can actually drive to my store and walk into the store, right? Probably a town at the most 10, 15, 20-minute radius, 20-mile radius, right? Because nobody's going to come from New York to Columbus to find a book, right? So my market share is limited only to the location or locality where I am. But what if I put that in online and allow a customer from anywhere to order it and I can ship it? Now all of a sudden my market that I'm looking for it is not limited to the city in which I'm operating as a brick and mortar, but anywhere that I can ship it or anybody who can order it, right? So from overall global national market share of book seller, I was probably a fraction of a 1%. Now I can go and gain it from that to maybe 5% of the market. And that 5% translate to the money, bottom line dollars, right? So I may try to solve it, a business things, by looking at it at the market share. So I may focus on trying to. Now, we talked about that specific problem. Can we solve each one of them without needing the software? Probably I can solve most of them, right? If I alphabetically sort it within my bookstore, I can reduce the time it's needed, right? If I institute a process where, hey, I can pick up a phone call and call any of the stores, or call that, I can still reduce it to some extent, right? I can segment it and say, so, okay, this set of books will only be in this store, or this set of books will only be in this store. Then I don't have to call every store. I can just call only certain stores. Or I may decide it and says, you know what, the warehouse will have all the data of how many books they have sent it, and then they can tell it every nightly when the stores call in, says how many, what type of book they sold. That's a feasible, right? I don't need a separate software for that. So I can solve majority of problems without the software. But the question is, if I build a software, will I be more efficient? Will I gain better process improvement? Potentially yes, right? Because it comes at a cost also. If it's going to cost me, let's say $100,000 to build that software, then I need to look at it, right, as at how much process improvement over X amount of months I needed in order to pay for that software. Right? And if the answer is yes, then I'll probably build the software instead of trying to do it, because at some point, I don't want to keep hiring people to do it. That's how you make the decision. Everybody clear how you kind of take the business problem, try to dice it and say, exactly, what are you trying to do here? Right? And then part of it is that once you know what type of business problem you're trying to solve it, you can build a model to say, is the software going to pay for it or not? If it's going to take me $1 million to build a software, and the benefit I can get it is only $100,000, it's not worth it building. I would rather do it manual, right? So it's important to understand what kind of business problem you're trying to solve it, so you can put a model around it to see whether it makes sense for you to build the software or not. So let's do one exercise. Okay, so if you look into your folder, after the first step where all the PowerPoint slides is, there is something which should have all the exercises. So you should have something that states exercise 1 business problem. Did everybody find it in the first step? Yeah, right there. So switch to the first tab, you should be able to find it. It's right, yeah, like that. Okay? Yeah. So what we want to do it is, we're going to take 10 minutes to read through the problem. Okay? And I want you to answer one simple question. This is the business problem that they're trying to solve it. All I want to know is which one of the 5 things that we looked at about it is the primary driver to solve this problem. Okay, what is it trying to solve it? Is it trying to get it what problem it's trying to solve? Is it trying to get the process improvement, productivity? Okay, I want the primary driver, right? There may be side benefits that you may get it, but what is the main reason why it's trying to do it? Okay, so I want you to take 5 minutes to read through it. Take next 5 minutes to talk with the person sitting next to you, right? And then you can combine this to here and talk among yourselves and come to a conclusion of what do you think it is trying to solve. Okay? So 10 minutes total, 5 minutes to read through it, and 5 minutes to talk with the team members to see what exactly you're trying to solve.